Welcome back, listeners, to Echoes of Sinister. We're diving back into the world of the Sinister Chronicles YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe over on their channel so you don't miss a single spooky story. Today, we're taking a look at My Neighbor Watches Me Every Night. She died 40 years ago. It all starts with a house, like this Victorian beauty going for a ridiculously low price. I mean, what could possibly go wrong, right?
Classic horror move, isn't it? The too good to be true deal. It just makes you wonder, what's the catch?
Yeah, exactly. And the story just piles on these creepy details right from the start. The real estate agent, she's like practically shoving the keys at our narrator. And then there's the whole thing with the neighbors. They won't even walk on the sidewalk in front of this one particular house, number 45. It's like they know something bad happened
And
there.
the whole street is haunted by something, yeah.
Definitely. And then we meet Margaret. Imagine this, okay? It's 3:27 in the morning. Our narrators in their new house, can't sleep, goes downstairs for some water, and they glance out the window. And there she is, this elderly woman, silver hair, wearing a floral dress, just staring back at them with these piercing, milky white eyes.
Ooh, that sends chills down my spine just hearing you describe it.
Right. It would be terrifying.
And what gets me is she doesn't even react when the narrator waves at her.
Yeah.
Just keeps staring, completely still.
Like no normal human reaction,
Yeah.
almost as if she's not really there.
Exactly. It's so unsettling.
So naturally, the next day the narrator decides to be all friendly, introduce themselves. But when they go over to number 45, it's totally abandoned, like peeling paint, weeds everywhere, windows all grimy, except for one window upstairs, spotlessly clean, the one Margaret was staring out of.
Okay, stop. That's just too creepy. Why would only that window be clean? It's like it's calling attention to itself.
Yeah, adds to the mystery, for sure.
Yeah.
Then our narrator runs into their next-door neighbor, Mr. Peterson. And they casually mention wanting to meet Margaret.
Oh no, I bet that didn't go well.
Nope. Mr. Peterson drops his newspaper like he's seen a ghost and says, Margaret Wheeler died in 1983, 40 years ago.
Wow, her presence must have really left a mark on the neighborhood.
Absolutely. And it gets worse. Mr. Peterson reveals that Margaret was found dead. Wait for it. In that very same window.
No way.
Yes. It's like that window is tied to her somehow, even in death.
That's so chilling.
I know, right? So Mr. Peterson, seeing how freaked out our narrator is, invites him in for coffee. And he starts sharing what he knows about Margaret. It's like classic horror movie backstory. Starts out normal, then takes a dark turn.
Hold on, tell me more.
So Margaret and her husband, they moved to Maple Street back in '52. Everything's fine until her husband dies in Vietnam. And after that, well, Margaret changes.
Grief can do that to people.
Yeah, for sure. It's like her grief and the loss, they twisted into this need to protect everything and everyone.
Almost like she was trying to prevent any more loss or pain.
Exactly. She becomes obsessed with safety. Starts a neighborhood watch, installs like the most high-tech security system available at the time.
That's going way beyond what most people would consider normal, even back then.
Right. But it's still not enough for her. She starts spending every night at that window, watching the street, writing down everything she sees in a journal.
Wow, talk about hypervigilance.
And then things get really dark. She's constantly calling the police, reporting all this suspicious activity that nobody else sees. She's convinced there are, like, unseen forces at work, and that her neighbors are hiding these terrible secrets.
Oh, that's a bit much. Makes you wonder what she was really seeing, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, haven't we all had those moments where we feel like something is just off?
Yeah.
Like maybe someone is watching us or something bad is about to happen?
Definitely. Everyone gets those feelings sometimes.
Exactly. So anyway, the police calls eventually stop. And after 3 days of silence, they go to check on her. And they find her dead, sitting in her chair by the window.
Oh, how off.
Heart attack, they said. But here's the chilling part. She's still clutching her journal, eyes wide open, fixed on the street below.
Okay, that's creepy.
The last entry in her journal is basically a promise to keep watching, even in death. Like Maple Street needs a guardian, and she's determined to be that guardian no matter what.
That's intense. I mean, she was so consumed by this mission, by her fear of something bad happening, that even death couldn't stop her.
It's like she believed she was the only one who could protect the street. But it makes you wonder, was she really a force for good? Or was there something darker at play?
That's a tough question.
Now, our narrator's trying to convince themselves that it was all just a coincidence. Like they imagined the whole thing with Margaret in the window.
Oh, I bet they're in for a rude awakening.
You bet they are. Because that night, at exactly 3:27 a.m., they wake up feeling like someone's watching them. And guess what?
Don't tell me. Margaret.
Margaret. Same window, same floral dress, same piercing eyes. just watching.
Okay, that would be a nightmare.
It's a total nightmare. Our narrator tries everything to escape her gaze. They cover the windows, sleep in different rooms, even check into a hotel.
But she's still there.
It doesn't matter what they do.
Yeah.
They can still feel her presence, still see her watching them from the shadows.
That's just unsettling.
Right. Like she's something more than just a ghost. Like she's woven into the fabric of the house, of the street itself.
So what happens next?
Well, that's a story for part 2 of our deep dive. Stay tuned.
It's like she's everywhere and nowhere at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So our narrator is basically trapped, right? They
Yeah.
can't escape Margaret,
Right.
but they also feel this pull towards her, this need to understand what's really going on.
I get that. I mean, imagine being the only one who can see her, the only one who knows her secret. It would be a huge burden, but also kind of fascinating.
Totally. It's like they've been chosen for something.
But for what, though?
That's the question that sends our narrator to the local library. They start digging through old newspapers, town records, anything they can find about Margaret Wheeler. And what they uncover, well, it just makes everything even creepier.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. What do they find?
So it turns out that Margaret kept 47 journals.
47? That's a lot of journals.
I know, right? Filled with all her observations and suspicions. The police took them after she died, and apparently they're pretty disturbing.
What kind of stuff did she write about?
Well, she wrote about shadow people and neighbors she believed weren't human, evil forces trying to take over Maple Street, like really out there stuff.
That's a lot to unpack. Makes you wonder if she was mentally ill or if maybe she was seeing something real that others couldn't.
Right, but here's the thing that really gets me. Some of Margaret's observations, as crazy as they seemed, they turned out to be true.
What?
For example, there was this guy she kept warning the police about. She was convinced he was a serial killer.
And
He was later caught stalking several houses on Maple Street.
oh, hold on.
I know. And then there was this group of burglars who got arrested in 1980. They'd been casing homes that Margaret had specifically reported as suspicious.
So she was right. She was actually seeing real threats.
It's hard to say for sure. Maybe she was just incredibly observant. Or maybe, just maybe, there was something more to it, something beyond our normal understanding.
It definitely makes you think about things like intuition or even psychic abilities.
And it also makes you think about confirmation bias. Is the narrator, having already seen Margaret themselves, just looking for evidence to support what they already believe?
That's a good point. We tend to see what we want to see, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. But anyway, as our narrator keeps reading through these journals, they start to notice something else. Patterns in Margaret's appearances. She's not just randomly watching the street, you know. It seems like she's focusing on specific neighbors. People she believes have some kind of darkness about them.
Interesting.
Like there was this businessman, everyone thought he was a pillar of the community. Turns out he was embezzling millions.
And Margaret knew.
She was watching him every night.
Whoa, that's freaky.
I know, right? And then there was this seemingly sweet babysitter who turned out to be stealing from the families she worked for. Margaret had her in her sights too.
Like she could see right through them.
It's almost as if she could sense their bad intentions.
It makes you wonder, what would someone see if they were watching us?
Right. Like what secrets are we hiding that we don't even realize are visible to someone who's really paying attention?
That's a little unsettling, to be honest.
Yeah. Makes you think about privacy and surveillance. Is there ever a situation where it's justified to watch someone like that?
Tough question. I guess it depends on the situation.
Definitely. So anyway, back to our narrator. They're becoming more and more obsessed with Margaret. They start documenting her appearances in their own journal, trying to decipher the patterns. And sometimes they could swear they saw Margaret nod in approval as they were writing.
Like she was encouraging them?
Yeah, like she was grooming them for something.
Passing the torch, maybe?
And then, after 2 years of this nightly ritual, Margaret doesn't appear in her window. For the first time in years, 3:27 a.m. comes and goes, and she's just gone.
Oh, I bet that's when things really start to get weird.
You bet. That's when the narrator finds the note. It's on their kitchen table, written in faded ink that smells of lavender and dust.
A note from Margaret.
Well, we'll find out what it says in part 3 of our deep dive.
Okay, I can't wait any longer. What does it say?
It says, "You understand now, don't you? Why this street needs its guardian. Someone has to watch. Someone has to see. Someone has to protect. You've learned well these past 2 years. The window is yours now. Take your post, guardian."
Whoa, that's intense. It's like she was waiting for the narrator all along.
Right. Like she knew they would be the one to take her place.
But why? Why choose this person?
That's the big mystery, isn't it? Was Margaret truly trying to protect the neighborhood? Or was there something, I don't know, something more sinister going on?
I mean, it's one thing to be concerned about safety, but to spend every night watching your neighbors, taking notes on them, that's not exactly normal.
No, it's definitely not.
And then to choose a successor to pass on this obsession.
It makes you wonder what Margaret's endgame really was.
Yeah, what was she trying to achieve?
So after finding the note, our narrator spends the entire night unable to sleep. They're drawn to the window across the street at number 45. Like they can't resist its pull.
Like they're being called to it.
Exactly. They find the front door unlocked. And almost like they're in a trance, they climb the stairs to the room where Margaret died.
It's like they're walking right into her web.
Yeah, they're fully embracing this role now.
It's a bit scary, to be honest.
I agree.
Like, what if Margaret's obsession, her darkness, it's contagious?
That's a good question. And it's one the story leaves us to ponder. Because as our narrator stands in that room, looking out at the street below, they start to understand Margaret. They understand the need to watch, to protect, to be the silent guardian against whatever evil might be lurking in the shadows.
So they become her.
In a way, yes. The story ends with this haunting image, both Margaret and the narrator, internally watching over Maple Street. Two figures bound by duty and perhaps by something darker, forever guarding the neighborhood.
Wow, that's a powerful ending. It definitely makes you think about the fine line between good and evil, and about the things we're willing to sacrifice in the name of safety and security.
Exactly. It's a story that stays with you long after you finished watching it. Makes you question your own beliefs about what it means to protect the things you care about.
For sure.
And speaking of watching, don't forget to check out the full video, My Neighbor Watches Me Every Night. She died 40 years ago, over on the Sinister Chronicles YouTube channel. And hit that subscribe button so you never miss a single bone-chilling tale. Until next time on Echoes of Sinister, keep your eyes open and maybe think twice before you peek out your window at 3:27 a.m.
Good advice.